Welcome to Civitas LA, where we feature diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. Each week, we hear and learn from and are inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making LA a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Now more than ever, we aim to foster community connections, elevate civic discourse, and promote grassroots engagement and participation across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in this civic conversation. NewFilmmakers Los Angeles is forging a path in creating community for the next generation of storytellers. With the goal of supporting, educating, and connecting emerging filmmakers, NewFilmmakers LA showcases innovative works by emerging filmmakers from this region and also from around the world, providing this community of creatives with the tools they need to succeed while also offering filmgoers a rich and diverse stream of fascinating content through their monthly screening series. Today, we are absolutely delighted to have with us founding executive director Larry Laboe of NewFilmmakers to discuss their work, learn how they're building and celebrating this next generation of storytellers. Larry, welcome to Civitas LA.
Thanks so much, Dwayne. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Let's jump right on in. Larry, first of all, I know you're founding executive director of NewFilmmakers LA. Can you give us a brief overview of the organization and how long you've been associated with it?
Yeah, so NewFilmmakers is a nonprofit 501c3, and the whole mission of the organization is to highlight and bring together the independent film community and connect both audiences and industry with new, emerging, diverse voices from all around the globe. And the idea really came out of, I grew up as a teenager in New York City. There's an organization in New York called Anthology Film Archives, very similar to sort of an American Cinematheque like we have here in Los Angeles. And one of their programs is New Filmmakers New York for emerging filmmakers. And upon relocating to Los Angeles, I got involved with a lot of the organizations here like Film Independent, started attending a lot of the festivals like the LA Film Festival, and AFI Film Festival, and just realized there wasn't really a fostered community for independent filmmakers throughout the year. And that's where the idea for New Filmmakers LA came from.
When was it founded, the organization?
2007.
2007. So there was so in this creative community called Los Angeles and Hollywood, there wasn't anyone serving this particular community.
I mean, I think there are a lot of organizations that have been around for a long time serving the community, but a lot of them were taking place annually, right, with festival formats annually. And so with an annual film festival, typically you'll have anywhere from 100 to 200 movies that screen once a year within a 1 week period. And the industry sort of emerges and really hones in on that 1 week. With New Filmmakers, we felt like there was an opportunity to really keep filmmakers who were coming up in the industry connected all throughout the year. And to provide more of like a focused spotlight on a small number of filmmakers every 30 days versus trying to throw 100 to 200 filmmakers into the mix once a year and then be dark for the rest of the year.
So tell us about this community that you've developed and how it's evolved over these years.
Yeah, so we do 12 festivals a year. We showcase anywhere from about 150 to 200 new emerging filmmakers every year. And it's just really, really grown over the years. We've been able to get some really amazing partners involved. Our filmmakers have gone on to do really amazing things like, really big, widely distributed studio movies and directing and writing television series. It's just evolved. It's been a constant evolution over the last 13 years.
In terms of serving this community, it's really, really difficult and, it's such a competitive industry. How has the revitalization of Hollywood and the emergence of all these new platforms such as Netflix and Hulu that didn't exist many, many years ago, how has that helped your work and informed how your organization goes about doing its work?
Well, I think these platforms have really democratized content. So I think there's more places than ever before where filmmakers can go with their work. And I think there's more people within the industry who are looking for new voices and looking to showcase new ideas and new talent. And I think now more than ever, people are really tapped in and open to exploring new ideas and new pieces of content and new platforms. So I feel like it's really given filmmakers a lot more opportunity, a lot more avenues where they can go to with their work. I feel like it's given filmmakers who are making their work independently a much better chance of having their work acquired and commercially distributed. And I'd go beyond just the platforms that we're all talking about, right? You have like Netflix and you have Amazon, and I also look at like filmmakers who are doing self-distribution on some of the other mainstream platforms that people are looking for content on, right? Like iTunes or Google Play, that filmmakers can do on their own. They can self-distribute. So I think that's really put filmmakers in a really nice position as well.
So how do you go about serving this community of filmmakers and positioning them to be successful in this competitive environment here in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so New Filmmakers LA is really all about tapping in community. So at our core, we're about rallying audience around independent film. And those audiences are everyone from independent film lovers to people in the industry who want to discover new talent. So we operate very much like a machine in that we're this promotional machine for filmmakers all throughout the year. So we built up a mailing list of over 61,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have a lot of industry that are paying attention. We brought in a lot of companies in the entertainment industry who have everything from development executives to agents to managers to production executives to financiers, looking at the content that we're playing every month and really paying attention to what has been programmed to be part of the festival. And we've cultivated a lot of relationships with different studio programs, different network programs, especially programs that are searching for diverse and inclusive voices. And that's actually become a really big part of our monthly festival programs. Is every month, as part of the festival lineup, we have what's called In Focus. And so In Focus, it is a initiative that highlights underrepresented groups. And so that's women, that's Black filmmakers, that's Latinx and Hispanic filmmakers, that's Indigenous filmmakers, that's filmmakers who are veterans, that's Middle Eastern and Arab filmmakers. And we kind of cover all these underrepresented groups throughout the year. This month we celebrated LGBTQ plus filmmakers for Pride Month. And it's been great because as an organization, you know, we're really built around celebrating emerging voices, period, right? And so anybody who's a talented storyteller, we want to bring them to the forefront, but we also want to recognize and celebrate the fact that, you know, traditionally people have not been able to share their voice. They've not been brought into the industry in the same way. And we want to give them the extra elevation that they deserve to really be discovered, really be seen, and be part of the conversation that's going on in media.
Well, certainly the last few years, and I'm going to jump right into that section here on representation and diversity in media. And certainly the last few years, there have been a number of conversations. A couple of years ago, there was Oscars So White, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and issues of diversity in front of the camera and behind the camera. So, how have you been able to position New Filmmakers as sort of, part of that conversation, and how have you been able to use your platform to build partnerships with, traditional industry players, whether it's NBC or Disney, et cetera, to, elevate your cohort of emerging creatives? Yeah,
it's a great question. So since you mentioned hashtag Oscar So White, I'll just jump in on that one. So as I mentioned, we have these 12 festivals a year, right? So 5 years ago, the Academy was actually already having this problem, right? This diversity, lack of diversity was really already an issue for that institution. And so we created a partnership actually for one of the monthly festivals with the Academy, which is our In Focus Latinx and Hispanic Cinema program. So the Academy actually stepped in as a full partner of New Filmmakers LA for that program, which meant that they were an official co-host. It's hosted at the Mary Pickford Center in Hollywood. They feature it on Oscars.org. They send out a newsletter to all Oscars members regarding that program. They build an Oscars Facebook page. So really, these filmmakers are being elevated by the Academy through the visibility that they're getting to the Academy membership. Also, it really helps to bring a lot of additional visibility in terms of mainstream media for these filmmakers. Obviously, having the stamp, having the Academy's backing brings a lot of extra visibility. So that has evolved into not only one program a year with them, which is that Latinx and Hispanic program, but we also 3 years ago added in our Middle Eastern and Arab film program into that same initiative with the Academy. So at this point, we've got 2 programs out of 12 happening with them every year. And in 2020, we actually, really in 2019, we announced a program with them that was to take place in March of 2020, which was an additional 13th New Filmmakers program of this year. which was going to be In Focus Shanghai Cinema.
Oh, interesting.
So right before COVID hit, we actually had to cancel the event. So we before COVID hit in the U.S. had to cancel because the ban on Chinese travelers had already happened in the U.S. And so none of those filmmakers could come over for that event. So we've seen this evolution, right, where, the Academy has come on board for one. It's been successful for 3 years. Now they've been on board for another for 3 years, and they're now doing 2 events with us a year. And here we are with them adding a third. And, we've been approached by them for other events as well. So there's obviously a lot of excitement. There's a lot of evolution happening. And it's been really the same across the board. So, evolution with Disney in terms of things that we've been doing with Disney over the years in terms of talent development. So back in 2015, we did a program with Disney, which was the first ever of its kind with Disney Channel. This was called, this is one of those pause moments.
So while you're thinking about that, I really want to talk to you about some of these specific programs that you've had with the Academy, and I'm curious about the Latinx and Hispanic cinema program and others. And how do you go about selecting the filmmaker or filmmakers? How do you go about what is the nurturing that you do process throughout that, and then what happens on the back end?
Yeah, so New Filmmakers LA is working all throughout the year doing outreach to the film community. A big part of our programming is, filmmakers from all over the world. So we do a lot of work with consulates. We do a lot of work with international film schools. We do a lot of work with international film festivals, where we're creating exchanges and partnerships and collaborations throughout the year to make sure we're reaching filmmakers all over the world in these different regions. So, if you look at any of our programming, you'll see, specifically with the Latinx and Hispanic program, about 60 to 70% of our content is international. So I think in that program the last year, I want to say we had like 9 countries represented in Latin America, and then a couple throughout the rest of the globe as well. We had some in the Caribbean and also Spain. So yeah, our team basically is our programming director and our events and outreach director, and myself, and we're just really keeping a pulse on talent throughout the year, making sure that we're keeping an open dialogue with the global filmmaking community. And yeah, it's just a lot of community building.
Mm-hmm. And you were thinking about the program with Disney. Have you remembered that?
Yes,
program?
yeah. So the program was called Free Period. Okay. And basically it was born out of really just engagement. Again, it goes back to that community engagement component. And that's a big part of, I think with any nonprofit, regardless of, what industry that nonprofit is serving or what group that nonprofit is serving, you're expected as a nonprofit to be super engaged and tapped into the community. And so as part of that community building and industry building for us, we had invited an executive from Disney Channel to be part of our jury for our annual award show. And after she took part in that and saw all the films, she was so blown away by the level of talent that was featured within our programs. She said, you know what, why don't you send my colleague and I the 50 best short films from the last year?
Oh, wow, that's great.
So we sent her the 50 best films, and after that, they contacted us and they were like, you know what? We actually want to hear pitches from 30 of these 50 people,
Wow.
which is incredible. I mean, to have somebody, who's a development executive at a company like Disney or Disney Channel say, hey, we think 30 of the 50 people you sent are worthy to come in and pitch ideas to us was pretty incredible. And then this next part goes to speak in terms of the caliber of our talent, right? Like everybody who plays at our festival is an independent or emerging filmmaker, but some of them are very strategic. They know what direction they want to have in their career. So of those 30 that were invited to come in to pitch, actually only 22 wanted to come in and pitch because I think 8 of them knew that, Disney or Disney Channel was not the direction for their career or not the direction for their storytelling or really wasn't their interest, So of those 22 filmmakers, 2 of them actually were awarded pilots as part of a program called Free Period at Disney Channel. So it was the first of its kind in partnership with New Filmmakers LA. Disney Channel actually was so excited by it that a year after those pilots were made, came back to us as an organization, placed those within our festival did sort of a big launch with us at the festival. And now it's evolved that we are working with the entire Walt Disney family, which is Walt Disney Creative Talent Development and Inclusion. And so now every single filmmaker who plays at our festival is invited to submit to be considered for all opportunities within the Walt Disney family. That includes Marvel, ABC Television. I think every year Disney brings in about 15 new directing fellows to that program. 3 of them were from New Filmmakers LA this past year, which is really incredible. And then one of them, Din Tai, who's an incredibly talented filmmaker who actually won our Best of Awards in 2019. He just directed his first ABC show, which is New Amsterdam. So, we've had a lot of really incredible success stories like that. And Din is just one of those many people.
Well, that's great. That's a true testament to the success that you guys have had and the platform that you're creating for these emerging filmmakers. I know one of the key features you mentioned is engagement. And I know at the monthly festivals, there's just simply lots of networking going on, which, builds relationships. With COVID-19, everyone's on Zoom or Skype or WebEx. How is New Filmmakers navigating this crisis?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think what's always been most valuable to everybody in terms of film organizations or film festivals is the opportunity to connect, right? It's the opportunity to build new relationships. And you never really know going into a festival what those relationships are going to be. I think, filmmakers who are really wise about navigating the festival circuit, they have an objective. Every filmmaker who's going to enter a festival really should have an objective before they're going to go into that festival. And so, if I'm a filmmaker, I want to ask myself, is my objective to just get eyeballs? Is my objective to find an agent? Is my objective to find financing for my next film? Is my objective to build up my cast and crew contacts for my next project? Right. And so, first and foremost, I would say in addressing that question, a lot of that remains up to the filmmaker of what they're trying to get out of the festival. Sure. And what we've been doing at this point in terms of the connecting and the networking is we're actually briefing our filmmakers several weeks in advance of the festival, doing a strategy briefing with them to say, like, hey, we understand that same opportunity for discovery is not going to exist in the same way. Those organic connections that may be able to be made, because every festival doesn't know who's coming to their festival, right? Anybody can buy a ticket. And even if Sundance knows, they can't ask an attendee, hey, you're here, could you meet with one of our filmmakers as an attendee? It doesn't work, right? But if a festival invites industry specifically to take meetings with the filmmakers, it's a different story. So what we've been doing is we're keeping the Q&As completely live. A lot of festivals so far, they've kept the Q&As live streaming where the moderator and the filmmakers can be seen on video and everyone else is in chat. We instead have decided to keep everybody on video. On the back end, we only give access to our moderator and our filmmakers to actually speak and be heard. Everybody else can be seen, but they're muted on our side. We mute them. Then when it's time for them to ask a question, we unmute them and they can actually interact with the filmmakers. So in that way, the sense of community has been kept alive and the attendees still really feel that they're interacting and getting something out of it. And the filmmakers still feel that they're able to make that meaningful connection with people, whether that person is, another panelist who's somebody already established in the industry, or just somebody who really loves their movie and wants to watch independent films. I think the thing that we are somewhat missing is just that sort of reception component, that component where everybody gets to mingle after. Sure. And what we've done to supplement that is in Zoom, there are breakout rooms. And so we have something called Attendee Connect, which allows people at the end of a Q&A to stay. We will place them in 3 breakout rooms over the course of 15 minutes. So essentially 1 breakout room every 5 minutes with 4 attendees. Each attendee has 60 seconds to state their name, what they do, or what they aspire to do. One resource they can offer and one resource they're seeking. So everybody has 60 seconds to do that, and then they get auto-snapped into the next room, and that happens 3 times over each Q&A.
And your programs have generally been monthly, so how many, and I know you would get, hundreds of attendees at your festivals on a Saturday afternoon into the evening. How many attendees are you getting on these calls, on these Zoom calls now?
I think we're averaging about 75. So it is less than what we've seen in the in-person festivals. And again, I think I think that's for a number of reasons. I think people really want to be at an event and be meeting people in person. I think everybody's suffering from a little bit of digital fatigue. I think so many people are on Zoom calls all week that it's hard to, get on a Zoom call after 5, 6 at night. It's hard to get on a Zoom call on a weekend. I think there's a bit of oversaturation in terms of, again, just digital fatigue,
Sure.
and I think that's playing into it. Obviously, like every festival, we'd love to get back to person, but in the meantime, we're shocked at how well it's going online. And if you were to, survey any of our filmmakers, the feedback we've been getting is incredible from audience, incredible from sponsors, incredible from filmmakers. So, well, the numbers are not quite hitting what they were at an in-person festival. That sense of community and the camaraderie around the films and also the connections that are being made, it's still working. It's still working very well.
No, that's great. Certainly, we all observed the protests the last few weeks here in Hollywood and Los Angeles and across the country. I'm curious to know what crossed your mind as you saw this play out, and what are your thoughts as to the role that you see New Filmmakers LA playing in terms of equity, inclusion, and moving the Hollywood industry forward with these issues?
For us, it's always been a staple of our programming from day one. It's something that New Filmmakers LA has always celebrated: is diversity, inclusion, equity, justice. It's always been implemented within our programs. We've always had a mandate for diversity statistics in terms of our program build. I think it's obviously very apparent from our In Focus initiative at every monthly festival that we are all about celebrating underrepresented groups of filmmakers all throughout the year. With BLM and everything that's been going on, we've actually implemented statements into all of our pre-rolls of our programs where we actually have a board member who addresses what's going on. And we've been making recommendations to our audience to support other organizations that are hyper-focused on specifically Black voices to help elevate those voices. So we've been recommending our audience to consider contributing to the Pan-African Film Festival in Los Angeles and several other organizations. I won't say that New Filmmakers LA focuses on Black voices, because that wouldn't be true. We focus on all voices, and we're definitely about elevating all underrepresented voices. But I think there are other organizations out there, like the Pan-African Film Festival, that if you really want to hyper-focus on a certain issue or support a very specific group, you can,
So you've been really successful in building partnerships and forging collaboration. Given what we've seen through the BLM marches, your existing work with, industry leaders like Disney, what actions do you want to see from these organizations going forward that can support organizations like yours or Pan-African Film Festival, et cetera, to continue to elevate these diverse voices?
I think to take New Filmmakers out of the equation, only because I feel like that's the fair way to address it. I think that each organization, let's say Fortune 500 companies, right? I think their commitment to change has to start within their own companies. And so, first making sure that their company reflects the message that they're putting out, I think, is the most important thing. And then looking into the communities that are their backyards and saying, how can we support organizations that are doing the work within our own backyards? I will also say, now I'll bring it back to New Filmmakers. I think one of the beautiful things about New Filmmakers LA is that we do celebrate everybody, and we're not about putting people in silos and saying like only celebrate, this group should only celebrate this group, right? Like we want to bring the community together around content and content creators of different backgrounds. So I also think it's important while companies do this work that they remember that, this conversation needs to be had by everybody. This is everybody's problem, right? So, racism, bigotry, any of that, it's everybody, right? Like we're all part of that conversation. It doesn't matter what color our skin is. So I think companies need to be cognizant of that and make sure when they're having these conversations that everybody's part of the conversation. If you go, for example, this is something that really bothers me. as somebody who's LGBTQ plus, I go to Outfest and pretty much everybody's LGBTQ plus. Like, that shouldn't be the case. Of course, our community should be represented at Outfest, but at the same time, Outfest should be something that everybody wants to come to and see great queer film, right? And so it's the same at Pan-African, right? You go to Pan-African Film Festival, 95% of the attendees are African-American, but shouldn't we all want to see African-American films? And I think, that's great. It's great that these organizations exist and are doing that work, but I want to see the audiences reflective of our society, not just a specific group.
Right, because these are stories by diverse people, but for all people, essentially.
Exactly.
A question, you just talked about, in our own backyard, and I'm curious about that because, you mentioned obviously, New Filmmakers has been very successful in growing a global community of filmmakers, and that's been great. Talk about our own backyard here within sort of Hollywood where you exist, and so much of our schools, so many of our schools, public schools, have really recognized deep cuts over the years in terms of arts programming. So what is that you all are doing or can be doing as it relates to our own backyard and supporting the creative opportunities amongst our own youth so that they see these opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So about 2 years ago, we realized that the entry point for filmmakers in our programs was really college age or more. And so we really wanted to do something to engage younger students, especially high school students who we felt were old enough to really start thinking about professional development. So we started a program called Cine Sessions, which is an on-set mentorship program that happens every single month. We started it just about 2 years ago, and our founding partner of that program is Wells Fargo Foundation, which is here in Los Angeles, and so they helped fund and get the initial year off the ground. They're still our partner to today. And basically, that program allows 4 high school students from Los Angeles County high schools every month the opportunity to come onto a real set and not just be mentored, but have a one-on-one mentorship with a different production professional on the crew that month. So we have a production sound mixing track, we have a production management track, we have an assistant directing track, we have a directing track, we have a cinematography track, we have a lighting track, we have a producing track, we have an on-camera hosting track. And so the festival has built this program in as part of the festival weekend. We have a partnership with Movie Maker magazine where we shoot on-camera interviews with all the directors who come through our festival. So that on-set day already existed. So it was really an opportunity for us to put together a curriculum, to bring in mentors who could do that work with the students. And then, of course, one of the biggest pieces of work of that is just really the recruiting, right? So we're working with educators, with principals, with arts education professionals, with other nonprofits like Inner City Arts who do great work in supporting students in arts programming after school to recruit students. We get students from Canoga Park High School, Hollywood High School, LA High School for the Arts, Helen Bernstein High School, just all over LA.
So this is really exciting work, and I'm particularly interested in the local work that you're doing, particularly to spur youth in our own community to really have access to this industry, which is going so strongly in our community. So how can others get involved? What is the type of support that you need, that you want to see to grow your offerings to local students or to your global community of filmmakers?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we'd really like to see is more support financially as an organization. That's one of the things that all nonprofits really struggle with. It's one of the things that really limit us in terms of being able to do more. You'll hear from every nonprofit I'm sure you speak to. The fundraising is always a challenge. The staff is always running on a very hectic schedule, trying to accomplish everything that needs to be done. And in terms of expanding to do other things that we'd like to do, that's definitely one of the biggest barriers. Is from a staffing perspective, just in terms of like the number of students we can accommodate on a monthly basis, the amount of space that we have available to us and the time that space is available, equipment, just all the things that sort of need to be thought about, all the logistics. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of times it comes down to, financial resources for most organizations. In kind is also another, really big thing where it doesn't have to necessarily be a cash contribution. It could be somebody giving their time. It could be somebody giving a service. It could be somebody giving a donation of a product. I'd say when it comes to our programming for young students, that's one of our most critical needs. When it comes to our programming for the monthly festivals, I'd say some non-in-kind or non-cash things that we're always looking for is that community building component, right? So collaboration with other like-minded organizations, festivals, schools, consulates, just really getting the reach out. Media is another really big thing, right? So over the years, we've had partnerships with magazines like Variety Magazine, where that's very important, right? Because it's helping to cultivate additional audience for our filmmakers,
Sure.
and really importantly, industry audience, right? So a lot of this stems back to from our high school program to our film festival program. It's about career development, right? It's about taking that next step within your career and really building an income for yourself and building a name for yourself
Sure.
within the industry. So a lot of it really circles back to that.
That's great, Larry. I know you guys also occupy office space in Hollywood. So given all the investment that we've seen in Hollywood over the last decade, and certainly I think to continue after COVID in terms of new studios, new creative companies coming in, obviously the explosion of Netflix, how has all this activity in and around Hollywood impacted your work and partnerships?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting to see how Hollywood has changed, honestly, over the last 13 years. We are at Sunset Gower Studios, which is a Hudson Pacific property, and they've been amazing to us. They've been amazing supporters. Obviously, like you said, very exciting to see Netflix come in. We've been super engaged with some of the content people at Netflix. So we've been able to get a lot of our filmmakers' work in front of them, had a lot of our filmmakers' work acquired by them, had a lot of our filmmakers now directing projects for Netflix. We have not yet had that community engagement component with Netflix yet, where they've been a supporter, but I think they have shown that they've been championing a lot of organizations within the backyard of Hollywood, and hopefully New Filmmakers LA will be one of those. But yeah, I think it's really exciting to see the investment that's coming to Hollywood, and hopefully that will mean great things for a lot of the nonprofits that are here. I think it's also just something really important for Los Angeles in general. Like, people come to Hollywood for careers in the entertainment industry. People come to Hollywood for tourism because of the entertainment industry, and I think it's critical not only for Los Angeles to keep this as the entertainment capital of the world, but also the entire state of California. It really drives tourism to California. So I think, look, now it's easier than it's ever been before to go and shoot a show or a movie somewhere else, and we're seeing it more and more and more and more, right? So if California and Los Angeles really want to keep up, that legacy, I think what we're doing is great, but it's not enough. I think we have to be more competitive. And I think, that's one of the great things for New Filmmakers LA is being in Los Angeles, right? It is still the main marketplace for the film and television and entertainment industry, but for how long can we hold on to that? As an organization, we're celebrating being here, but at the same time, we'd like to see more investment in the industry, just because I think it does mean so much to the city and so much to the state.
Now, you've mentioned, again, the great collaboration with Disney, the other partnerships with Netflix, et cetera, and of course, all the work that you all do to prepare your filmmakers, to expose your filmmakers, and to celebrate their work and to give them the platform. Tell us about some of your graduates who've gone on to do great things. Are there any successes that come to mind that you would say,
Yeah.
Hey, here are some people who came through our programs
Yeah.
and really knocked it out of the park?
Yeah, so I will just mention just this year, we had an animated film nominated for Best Academy Award by CQ Song called Sister. Last year, we had an Academy Award winner for Best Short Documentary.
Oh, really?
That was Reika, and I'm going to skip pronouncing her last name because I do not want to mispronounce it. And that film was Period End of Sentence, which was also acquired by Netflix. So one of our alumni filmmakers from way back in the day, from probably 2009 or 2010, is Ari Aster, who just today, today is
June 30th.
June 30th, was inducted into the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Wow.
So he's a new Academy member today, and of course he's made films like Midsommar and Hereditary, and so we've had a lot of filmmakers who have gone very, very mainstream in that capacity. But if you watch Ari's movies, they're anything from mainstream, but they're being widely distributed and have wide audiences. So we've had a lot of those kind of success stories over the years. Honestly, too many to count, but in a great way. We have filmmakers directing, as I said, shows like New Amsterdam. Shows like 911 by Ryan Murphy. Just the list goes on and on and on of so many of those filmmakers who have come up. We had a filmmaker just recently in the past 6 months, Elaine Lowe, who was staffed on HBO Max's new Gossip Girl reboot.
Okay.
And so season 1 of that is now wrapped, and she's moved on to doing Dynasty on the CW. So yeah, so basically there's so many of those, and if you talk to a lot of those filmmakers, they will tell you, I really owe a big part of my success, or some of my first opportunities that really paved the way to NewFilmmakers LA. So that's always really exciting to hear.
Well, that's great, and that's a great testament to your work. And we're going to give a shout out to your colleague Boyana Sandik, who's the director of programming, because I know scheduling all of these film festivals, monthly, and curating all that content takes a lot of work. So kudos to you all for providing that to the community at large.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of work. She's watching hundreds and hundreds of films every month, and she's also paying attention to what's going on at other festivals globally, and so it's a tremendous amount of work for her. And so kudos to her for sure, and also Andrew Aceto, who's our events and outreach director, who does a tremendous amount of work in promoting the programs and getting the word out to the community, building our community partnerships. So yeah.
Okay, so that's a staff of 3 that I've heard so far. So 3 of you all curating that much content and producing that much content and finding sponsors and promoting. That's wonderful. Well, Larry, this has been an outstanding conversation. We're really excited about the work that you do, and we're really excited to follow the progress that we know you're going to continue to make. So since this is a podcast about Los Angeles and those making a difference, we'd love to tell our audience a little bit more about you and your Los Angeles, particularly when you're not working so hard as we know you do. First of all, where are you from originally?
So I was born in Michigan, just south of Detroit.
Which neighborhood do you live in, if you want to share that with our
I live in
audience?
Hollywood.
Mobility is a big question in LA overall. So Uber, Lyft, yellow cab, bike, bus, walk, metro, scooter.
Bike.
Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus.
Netflix.
Favorite restaurant in Los Angeles? Or top 2 restaurants in Los Angeles?
You know what? I'm gonna say one that's no longer there.
Oh, who's that?
But it's Maison Richard. It was a French restaurant on Melrose.
Aren't you fancy?
Yeah.
Guests visiting to Los Angeles, where's your favorite place to take that visitor?
Griffith.
Rams or Chargers?
I don't pay attention to football.
Griffith or Runyon?
Runyon.
If you like a cocktail, I don't know if you do or not, favorite watering hole in Los Angeles?
Keep saying closed down places, but it would have been Paley.
Oh, at Columbia Square. Oh my God, well, you'll save some bucks then. Larry, thank you so much. This has been a great dialogue, and we really appreciate your time, and we appreciate all the work that you do and your service to community. Hollywood is thrilled to have you as part of its community, and we know you're going to continue to do great things. So hopefully we can have you on again and discuss the progress you're making. So thank you, Larry, for joining us this afternoon. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. We hope you join us again next week. In the meantime, stay strong, get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com. And we hope you'll connect with us on social media, on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.